So I'm having a conversation with Matthew Laporte, who originally designed the Prolecto change order concept, which is part of our business process automation library, or what we call BPA. And more recently, in having a conversation with a client that's been using it now for a couple of years, with the recent work that Matthew's been doing with AI augmented capacities, which we have been talking about in the past. Matthew saw a whole nother opportunity to make the change order process much more enjoyable for users that are doing this day in and day out. And in conversation with the customer, they liked the functionality, but they weren't necessarily pleased with the experience. And this would be not something that is uncommon that we hear in complex operations inside the NetSuite environment, based on sort of the default user interfaces that are offered. So Matthew went ahead and he enhanced the experience, but we didn't have to change any of the logic or the underlying record structures, which kind of really illustrates that there is layers here, in the sense that the database is one layer, that's a core fundamental layer. There's business logic on top of that layer, and then the user experience is really a whole another environment that we can be really tailoring to our specific client experiences. We don't have to necessarily sit with the default user interface. That's the breakthrough. It's one of the breakthroughs that's available and powerful for people that are on the NetSuite platform, is we have many more options than we previously had. So Matthew wants to give a little background here. So Matthew, maybe I think you wanted to talk a little bit about it conceptually and do a demonstration, correct?
Right.
Okay.
The core fundamental of the change order hasn't really changed much in the past couple of years. The idea being, there is a real problem, a true problem that many of our clients are facing, which is, how do you allow changes to be made on orders when other activities are also taking place, such as fulfillment or what have you? How do you ensure also that those changes are made in a controlled environment, in traceable environment, especially when you're in the some of our clients are in the fixed bid process on larger projects, and they have a PO for X dollar amount, and they need to be able to explain to the end customer over the course of a couple months how the order evolved, and there when sometimes just different vendor sourcing or just alternate items and so forth. How do you show the entire history of what happened on a specific project is the key use case for a change order like the module we are going to see today, because it's really try to address that fundamental concern. Within that solution, it also trying to help the user be in full control, but also helps the manager see what happened, and depending on the policy, if the manager needs to approve over a certain threshold amount, or if you go above a certain cost, then manager can come in, or if the certain POs were already placed and PO needs to be updated, or sync back to the vendor, get approved for the vendor before approving changes. And all of that can be just built in the change order concept. It's all about control and traceability. So that's really what the change order is trying to achieve here. Capture all the changes, but also quantify. So another use case could be, you could send a customer maybe 3 versions of a change. You can do it in minutes, right? Here's 3 options. Which one do you prefer? Oh, I prefer that one. Okay, then you approve one. The other 2 are being rejected. That's one use case. Like I said, routing either to maybe you thought you would have it in your warehouse and you don't, so you need to route it to a vendor last minute. Well, that's just, it's simple when you think about it, but it's not that simple in NetSuite, right? Okay, well, you need to maybe get the line back to 0, get a new line, make it sourced to the vendor because you need a PO up and so forth. So those are just things that can be almost, we know those use case. We can just enable the use case to be done within the change order. And then when you get into the approval, who can approve, at what time they can approve, if they are past a certain threshold, then someone else needs to approve it. So again, all in change order. and just how do you then execute what should be executed in terms of the changes being applied either to the existing order, just like we were doing before, or just get a new order
Hmm.
and full traceability, which is one of the key parts of this of the solution.
So again, the idea though is that change orders at some level, you think of them as simple, but you're in different situations according to the time because you're in the middle of some sort of fulfillment narrative. And depending on the time of where you are in that process, you have to take different routes. But the power of this being that the change order is isolated from the real order, you could say, the live order, allows you to prepare for commitment. And once you commit, then the proper kinds of rules can be applied to act on that. That's where actually five is. And of course, then you have the traceability of that. I think this is a good interpretation of the general phenomenon. Please continue.
It's isolated, but I would also add that it's not blind to what's happening because think of it this way. If there's miscommunication, let's say, and you thought you were going to replace an item for another item, but that item unfortunately it's shipped ahead of time. Well, you cannot replace it anymore. So the change order is not entirely blind to it. So it will not let you submit it because it saw something happen since, and you're not allowed to do what you thought you were allowed to do before. That makes sense.
Yes, yes. Okay.
So really, just fundamentally, the way I think of it is it's really two business flow. The main one is just the regular order flow. This is the order you try to maintain because it shows all your commitment on all those items and all those dates that you might have with all the vendors you have involved and so forth. So this is the key that you're trying to protect.
Hmm.
So when the change needs to happen, the whole idea is to build that little parallel next to it that allows you to do anything, really anything. Maybe what happened if it's almost like a bit of like a what if scenario, right? What if I
Hmm.
do this and it changed
Hmm.
that, and then I
Hmm.
applied this and source to that vendor? What would be the impact of that? Oh, okay, that's the impact. Okay, I don't really like it. Let me change it again. And then you can do it. So you have that ability to just work with the change order at this level, really, without impacting anything above, because this is, what you've committed to, right?
You're really isolating out the live order, which protects it. You're not touching it, but allows you to be in this exploratory dimension to contemplate the change that you want to have, which allows you to maybe have multiple kinds of things. As you mentioned before, there could be three, which maybe you have to talk with your customer about what those impacts would be, but you're comforted because you're not touching the live system and so forth. Naturally, those though that can come together. But the change order is trying to isolate out those storylines or those edits. Is that correct?
Totally correct. Yes. And at one point in time, you get approval, and that's the one that is going to sync back up to the live order.
Hmm.
And that sync, well, there are different options on how you want to sync it. Obviously, whenever you think nothing changed since the previous change order, but any changes that are going negative, because again, one of the key concept within the change order and the way we structured it is because it allows you to go net negative, which is not something that NetSuite native can allow you to do with another order type, right?
Right,
So you
right.
can go net negative. So net negative impact has to flow back to the original order. There's nothing we can do about that. Positive impact, you have the freedom to decide, do you want those positive impact to go back to my original order, or they can also route to brand new order because that's how you want to do it. So you have a little freedom to choose on what you want to do here.
So I think you were thinking about just demonstrating this. So it's really the previous discussion is the logic's all the same, but now you have a different expression of the
Correct.
experience.
When we first designed this, we had certain tools at our disposal and we had to leverage or use, or we were constrained with the NetSuite interface. But all that has changed in the past 6 months. When you know you have something that is fundamentally strong, but the experience is not great, or you know there are some weaknesses, then that was a good opportunity for us to just completely revamp it.
Hmm.
from an experience standpoint while keeping the same architecture in place. So
Yes.
if you haven't used the change order before, nothing changed under the hood. It's the same record structure, just different experience on top of it,
Yep.
much faster. So again, in this use case, we started at the sales order. That's where it makes the most sense. So nothing really changed. You can click the create change order. And as I click the create change order, and this is a very large order,
Like mini
many
lines.
lines.
Hmm.
There are many lines, like 100 lines. Let's just go back. Even see the loading this original sales order, how slow it is compared to the change order. So yeah, many lines.
Right. Okay.
Maybe
Got
like
it.
fundamentally change here, as you can see here, creating is that, see it happen. It used to be that you had to wait for the change order to be created to then be in the change order. Not the case anymore. You create a change order,
Hmm.
you're you're being shown the screen that you will interact with
Hmm.
while the record structure is being created in parallel.
Got it.
And
Okay.
and what we just saw now is that the record were created and then it syncs back up to this screen and says, okay, I'm done. This is the record. So if you want to go to that record, it's right here, but just know you've been able to interact with the changer ahead of time. So
So one of the things you did here is you were focusing on creating an experience which is trying to remove all of the delays and just waiting for NetSuite to do its processing. So that was one of your design goals, correct?
yes, because just the creation, and again, you create the record and then you need to go and edit. So it's let's call it a 30 seconds, 40 seconds delay, which is, it's quite long. Now, when the screen is up in 2, 3 seconds, you're already in edit mode. So you can already start to make changes. You don't need
Terrific.
to have that edit and so forth. Okay.
Okay.
Something else that happened in that experience is I'm caching all the items. So if you were to go at the bottom and just try to add something new, they are all already loaded. So you don't have that little lookup that takes, okay, it takes a couple of seconds. It's always a few seconds. When you add up those seconds, it's just very slow.
Okay.
Right? So here I can just easily add item like this. Same as before, I can also inject like this. You can inject in the middle, especially when you think about bundle, maybe you want to insert line in a specific place. So that is still respected, and see how fast it is in terms of
Yes.
the item, render the description of the item, the default price, and just do the math right here on the site, so you can see the impact at the line level right here. So plus
Oh, I
two
see.
quantity for this amount.
And it
uh
looks like the color coding means that's the lines that have been touched.
yes, so now I can just go back to zero,
Or you
or
strike
click the
strike
X,
out to mean remove them.
because you cannot, in the design option, I prefer not to delete a line, right? We try to
Right.
stay away to delete lines.
So you can see the
I much rather see put zero exactly.
yeah.
um, so you can do this, you can just decrease quantities and so forth. It used to be all client side on the record structure on submit, so you had to wait in the old architecture. You do all the changes, then submit, then you see the changes. Now it's just live, right? You make changes, you can see the changes as it happens, right? You do whatever you want.
Very, very nice. And I like, my eyes went over to the left here where I can see the changes preview. So this is another way of looking at the changes across the space that you're touching, correct?
Yes, and correct. So it keeps all my rows and it tells me, okay, what are you trying to do here? Reduce quantity again with the color code,
Hmm.
red reduce and
Hmm.
green you increase,
Hmm.
with a net impact or net variance
So
right here.
so right at the moment, it seems like what you're doing is you're trying the changes that you made would make the sales order go down from 90 less the five, correct? It would make it go down.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. 285-ish. We could have a subtotal. Yes,
And
totally.
I see two new lines, three modified, and one removed. The sales order, the original sales order says it's still unchanged, meaning it's still kind of here.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, got it. Got it.
Um,
And in this case, so you can remove lines and this or that. If you wanted to affect price, Is
Mhm.
that something as well that could be touched?
Yeah, I can just increase, let's say something does not change, but I want to make this one to 175. There's
Mhm.
no quantity impact, but there is a price increase.
Oh, okay, very good. That makes sense. And I see you
Yes.
got a different kind of color coding for that situation.
For this client, they didn't want to use it. So what I've done also that we don't really see here is the way we show those rows are fully configurable in terms of what we want to display. Meaning, when you get to vendor selection, that's one option. Or just where you want to source it from, right? If you have many warehouses and you thought you were going to source it from warehouse one and you really want to source it from warehouse two, well, that's another configuration in the tool that I can show you that.
Oh,
So you can also source it differently.
meaning if you're a drop ship business.
Dropship or not, even from your own warehouse or from a dropship business. So it used to be sourced from vendor A, you want to source it from vendor B. Part of the configuration in the tool is to show the vendors on the line,
Got
so
it.
you
Got
can
it.
also change vendors.
Okay,
Correct.
we're not seeing that now, but you're saying that these more advanced techniques of what a change means, we can
Mhm.
express this through this view. So this is easy to understand. That would be a more complex narrative, but I could see the potential there.
Yes. And add on top of it the concept of lot numbers, right? So you could also sometimes you pre-choose what lot numbers you want to ship on your order. That's another concept we have in the change order that is not showing here. But you could say, okay, well, when I reduce from three to two,
Hmm.
maybe which lot number I want to
I see.
if you have a or a serial number, right? Maybe serial number is easier to understand. So I want to drop this one serial number for
Right.
another. So it could also be in here, correct?
So the idea, though, of course, is just the level of granularity as we get into what a change means. Naturally, lot numbers are right, all that. And of
Mhm,
course, we need to remember that the sales order could be in the middle of a fulfillment. This one says pending fulfillment, but it could be in the middle of a
mhm.
fulfillment, which means I don't think this is showing the expression of what's possible yet. It is not reflecting on the feasibility yet, is it?
It's all behind the scene in the control mindset, right? It's all here. It will restrict you from going down. So if I were to just if it was partially fulfilled and I'm trying to drop a row that has been shipped, I will get alerted that I'm not able to do it. This client doesn't want to have it. But yes, you could have another option to show, ship quantity or available remaining
Yes. Because
quantity.
because of course I just recall from the previous logic that you had that where are we and really that we have shipped partially, so you can't necessarily remove it because that logic can be all expressed in here.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, so let's continue. So I think the basics are here. This looks much easier to see. What's the thing at the very top? Omitted 13 and inactive. What is that message at the very top?
One of the core concerns that I've heard with change orders sometime is, especially when you're in a 1 year project, long project
Real
that
long sales order to fulfill.
long orders fulfilled. Things happen also on the side. There are items that are being inactivated,
Hmm.
which good or bad, it's a different discussion. Or also sometimes rep have changed.
Yeah.
So there are reps that are becoming inactive and so forth. It used to be a concern before because we were bringing all the lines to the change order. Now we built some protection on the change order that I'm not going to display those rows on that change order because I know they are inactive, and
Hmm.
by being inactive, they might be problematic on the syncing process after the fact, right? So we are trying to protect the user ahead of time.
Got it.
So
Okay. And of course, those rules I would imagine could be tailored according to the situation that client would like to have. But what you're trying to do is, in this case here, we were trying to express it.
correct,
Okay.
entirely customizable. Yes,
Okay, great. Okay, so I think I'm getting oriented to what's happening here. I can see the ads, I can see the deletions, I can see the price quantity changes, I see the color coding, and I see the changes preview, and I can see a narrative here on the left. Where does one
yes.
usually go when they're satisfied with the like the change that's being contemplated?
That's where again it's tailored to how you want your approval workflow to work. Please, you want to save it.
Yes.
Could be auto save also, as we build
Yes.
tools, it could auto save. And see just to save how fast it was compared to the previous version, which was a lot of syncing with rows and so forth. So that all that is gone. It's just much more expedient.
which is nice.
And once it's saved, it can be either approved or rejected. But before I do this, what I was saying earlier on the change order is you can decide what you want to do with the positive variance. And you see here, their rule is all positive change route to a new sales order. That's the policy for this client. I can just change it. Now it goes back to my original sales order.
Hmm.
What's happening behind the scene is we have some flags that can be checked or unchecked, and this is really what's happening when you do this. So I'm just saying, okay, well, on this one I need to go outside of the norm, and that's what I just did. And
So
if you
in other words,
notice,
it defaulted with the original rule. Right now, you just overrode the default rule.
correct, I cannot approve anymore because I
Hmm.
have a different approval process when it goes outside the norm. Now you need to be a certain person to approve this. And I made it on purpose that I cannot approve it. Because what I want to show now is on top of it, we built a manager view.
Oh,
So it could be a rep view almost, where you could see as me as a rep, I can see maybe all of my changes that I have in flight that I
hmm.
need to manage, right?
Hmm.
That's one view. Or you could be the manager of that rep, and saying, okay, what are all the changes that are happening on my projects maybe, and the the net impact of all those changes and so forth. So the one we just did is right here, number one, the latest one with the net changes. So I can just see it here, and I can also approve or reject from that screen. So the idea of having one place to oversee everything and not having to go in the record structure and, let's say, a few safe searches or however you want to view the world, right? It can all be shaped
And
right
so the
here.
manager could cut the data. You could cut the data based on the responsibility or role in the organization where this would be. And if you're doing a fair amount of this, this is a powerful way to have coordination.
Entirely
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, this is
Yes.
this is great. That's new capability that wasn't even existing before.
Correct. So I can go back in my change order. Now I can approve it. Okay, I have some logic behind the scene that now it detects who I am, so I can
Hmm.
now approve it. The only thing you would do is, okay, well, let's approve it. It used to be, again, very slow to do this. It leverage all of our queue system that we've had in the past. So it sends all this the thing that needs to happen in the queue, and you're done.
Change order has been improved read only. So now are we looking at the order in a read only state now, or it's
Now, no, now it's still the change order.
Mhm.
It detect that it got approved, and by being approved, you're locked from doing
Oh,
anything on the change order. We don't want you to interact with, because that's where traceability comes in. Approved locked. That's what it means.
okay. But does that mean the change order though has been implemented into the logic of the original order or into the environment?
It's in the process of, in the sense of, now the queues are in the back, are here, and they are going to be processed in the background to be updating the original sales order. Yes.
Is there any
Um,
instrumentation that shows that it's doing that at this point or not? Not yet in this
Not at
iteration.
this point. Not yet at this point. That could be a really great addition, to just say, okay, it's been approved, read only, and then maybe something else that says all changes have been implemented, and you could have the log per se. So yes, that could be a good addition.
Got it. And I guess then this also gets back to we went into this mode of the change order based on the original order, but is there a way to distinguish the original order and the history of the change orders that were approved? Is that back in the original interface or I guess that's where,
That would be in the original interface at the moment, but
yeah, that makes sense.
what I'm hearing is almost like a trace log.
Yes, a
That could be
visualization,
a
perhaps.
visualization. Yeah, entirely, like all the net changes. For now, you see only by the change preview, but just imagine having that change preview with the original order,
Hmm.
or a project, depending on your structure, and then you can just say the entire change log just so you can see it in one screen. Yeah, totally. That could be a really great addition. Yes.
Hmm. I notice at the very top there, the sales order says it's 145,809. But when I look down below, it says total amount 93 with the net
Mm.
variance. To help me understand the differences between those two numbers.
Okay. I would imagine it's because of the inactive item. The difference is so this
Oh.
is change order lines amount.
Hmm.
This is pure sales order amount. And because this one, obviously, we are in sandbox and so forth, so a lot of items are inactive. So I would imagine that this difference between the two is purely the 13 inactive items that we saw.
Okay.
Uh, that's the value of them. Yep.
So I think the way I'm supposed to interpret this is all the lines that are candidates for change order represent $93,000 of
Correct.
potential change. But really the changes are the changes that are there in the left in the changes preview. That's the real isolated elements
Mhm.
that are changing. And thus that really is a difference of 5,103, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
What's it mean by the total quantity, 253? What was the intent of that?
Quantity is always a bit tricky because not all items share the same unit or measure. So if everything is in eaches, it could be interesting to just see, okay, what's also the impact in terms of quantity changes? How many more eaches will you get on that order? Maybe for some client, it's more meaningful than others, especially with units.
Got it. And so at this point, what we have now is great. We have the basic change order process, which we've talked about in the past. Now we have this ability to put this better experience on it. Client seems very delighted, correct?
Yes.
Very
Eh,
enthusiastic because they're in it all the time.
Mainly for speed and performance. Yes.
Speed and performance because they're in it a lot, correct?
Correct. And it just, if you want to use it, if you don't have the restriction, they can always just go back to the order and just make changes directly to the order. Oh,
Yes.
it's just one item. Let me just do it. Well, that means the alternative is not compelling enough, right?
Got it. Because in other words, if it was just a little change, because the experience was cumbersome, they would opt to kind of bypass their processes because of the discomfort, you could say, of the speed of the app or what have you, with NetSuite's default user interface and the way it wants to write records and stuff. So this would allow them to comply and keep their practices better.
Correct.
Got it.
Exactly.
And I think the important point here is that this is another user interface that could be compelling, but the power now is available to us, which is listening more carefully to what the client would like to achieve, and we can tailor that experience to fit better. So whatever we're doing here is not meant to be the end. It's meant to be a place for creative thought about different experiences. Is that the way you're seeing the world right now, Matthew, and what's possible?
Totally. Again, the architecture behind it is sound. It's just a matter of how you want to shape the experience for your own user. This is how
Yes.
this client wanted the experience to be.
Hmm.
It can be almost anything, really.
Yes. So I think this is reinforcing the reality of that strong modeling of the problem, which then can be expressed in the database records, strong business logic on the things that we're doing here. This has lots of business logic on how it has to affect either an original sales order or make new ones and respect that we may have fulfilled. Lots of that business logic is there. But now we really can isolate out the user experience as going, okay, that's optional. We can do it many different ways. This is wonderful news for our clients to really unlock the potential of NetSuite. Thank you, Matthew. You're doing really great work, Matthew. It's really good.